When I was a middle school pastor, I delivered a, I don't know, 15-minute-ish message every single Sunday morning. And the students mostly paid attention and were mostly at times kind as they exited the large group space for their small group experience. My favorite comment was always, "I really liked your speech." The students, they would literally say that several times a month. And I mean, it was funny, and I think they were probably sincere, at least as sincere as a middle schooler could be. When I became a lead pastor, the kind of compliments from adults, they kind of continued and they sound the same. They would say things like, "Great message, pastor." The most common compliment that I ever heard in ministry was "Great message, pastor." And I don't know, maybe it was true. It also can be a little misleading though. Because behind that compliment, most pastors are asking a quiet question. Did it work? I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but did the message work? Not was it good, but did it work? Did the message move people towards Jesus? Did it make sense on Monday morning? Did it change anything in their life? If you have felt that tension, you are not alone. I read a Barna study a good while ago that said that 49% of US pastors believe that their own preaching is strong. Well, that kind of caught my eye for a minute. Only about half of pastors think that they have strong preaching. And now that was a survey of the pastor. If we were to ask the congregations, I wonder if 50% would still be the benchmark. I think a lot of us may be a little too prideful to admit that our preaching isn't as strong as we think it is, or maybe at least it could be. That's the pressure I want to talk about today, and I hope to relieve a little bit of today. Let's walk through 5 signs that your sermon might not be working as well as it could, even if the lobby is still full of compliments. 5 signs that your message might not be working as well as it could. Here's the first one. You didn't define the sermon's purpose. I mean, every strong sermon starts with a target, a goal. What do I want people to do? That's the question we have to ask. That answer is what defines the goal. Now, we're going to use truth, biblical truth to get there, maybe stories from Bible narratives or even stories from current culture. We're going to use all sorts of things to get us there. But the sermon needs a singular purpose. The purpose of preaching is application, because application leads to transformation. Information is where it all begins, but application is the goal. So you may, teach something good, but if people don't know what to do with it, it isn't going to stick. And God seems to use application, not information alone, for the greatest transformations. So we've got to make sure that every single message has a very clear purpose. If your sermon doesn't have a clear purpose, well, it's a sign that it might not be as good as it could be. Number 2, you taught the text, but you didn't build a bridge. I mean, you're smart. You've been to Bible school. You've been to seminary. You've got some degrees. You've studied this more than probably anybody else in your church, right? So you can explain the Greek, the Hebrew all day long, but if you can't answer the simple question, so what? You'll lose people before they even leave the building, much less before Monday morning. I mean, great preaching connects scripture to real life, and it does it with honesty and humility and with hope. Like as a side note, I feel like too many preachers love digging deep into the text out of their own kind of personal insecurity. I mean, if I'm honest, over a congregational need. I mean, here's what I mean, right? Like reading Greek or Hebrew to look smart, that's an insecurity issue, right? I mean, trying to sound smart doesn't help people apply the truth in their life. So deep is not the goal. We need to build a bridge from where people are through the truth by being clear, not by being clever. In fact, it's harder to simplify complexity, isn't it? Isn't it harder to make a complex idea simple than it is to just teach it as a complex idea that you may understand, but nobody else can? So if your sermon on Sunday didn't really build a bridge, but you still taught the text, well, it might not have been as good as it could. Here's the third thing. You tacked on a little bit of application. I mean, you were so fired up about the information, but the application felt like an afterthought. I mean, most pastors, they focus way too much on information. I have noticed that. I grew up in the church feeling that, experiencing that. I mean, for those of you who attempt to include application, sometimes, and you may do this, you default to the just basic imperative. Go do this, and here's 3 points, and then here's how you can apply it. Really quick, just go do this. Well, the power of imperative application really does come through the utilization of two other kinds of application. Maybe you've heard of this, indictive and introspective. Indictive application is what should people believe? What's a new truth that they should consider? Introspective application is what should people reflect on based on this truth? What kind of introspective question or reasoning or conflict is this information causing? That's an application of the information. And then we bring an imperative application. What should you do with this truth that you have now considered in the introspection that we've provided? Those three versions of truth really create the most powerful opportunity for transformation in a person's life. That's actually, I think, how you move the truth from their head to their heart and eventually to their hands. Here's the fourth thing that you may accidentally be doing that's leaving some of that sermon on the table. Number 4, you're depending on emotional response as proof. If you are depending on an emotional response as proof that it worked, you might be looking for the wrong proof. Listen, I'm a communicator. I do this professionally all the time, right? I preach almost every week in different churches around the country. So as a communicator, silence doesn't feel very golden. In fact, it feels very deadly. If you've ever been on a stage, and you have stood there for a few seconds of quiet, you know that it feels like a lifetime sometimes. But silence might not be a sign of something going wrong. It might be a sign of actually impact. Think about those applications that we just talked about. It could be a sign of introspection happening. Could be a sign of a new truth that someone is wrestling with. See, sometimes people are processing. They're convicted. They're reflecting. They're wrestling. And we can so easily mistake stillness for failure. What we really should be doing is watching for fruit midweek, not during the moment of a message. Here's the last one. Number 5, you never ask for feedback. That is such a miss. You can't grow if you don't evaluate. This is a topic for a completely different podcast segment, but experience isn't the best teacher. I know you've heard that, but experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experience, that's the best teacher. I mean, we grow when we get feedback, not just when we get reps. I mean, find people that you can trust and ask some questions like this. What was the main idea of the sermon? What stuck with you? Where did your mind wander a little bit? Did you feel invited to act or respond? I mean, feedback is our best growth mechanism, but we have to ask for it. The people who give you unsolicited feedback typically have an agenda. The people who have the best feedback aren't going to give it to you unless you ask for it. I do a leadership lab on communication. I offer it a few times a year. In that, I give everyone who joins us for it, and of course, any clients, churches I'm working with as a coach and a consultant, I give this to them as well. I give them these feedback mechanisms that create feedback loops for people. Because again, a great feedback conversation isn't, did you like it? Great message, Pastor. That's not very helpful. So my feedback mechanism document actually gives people a form to fill out so that they can give you very specific feedback on the presentation, the information, the application, the inspiration, and all points in between. Again, you have to ask for it though. It's not just going to happen naturally. So let me challenge you with one thing, right? Just one thing before we're done. Let me challenge you with one thing that you can do to reframe how you evaluate your sermons. Instead of asking that basic question, was it good? Ask this, was it clear? Did it connect? Did it invite change? And did I leave space for God to do what only He can do? If the answer is yes, awesome, keep it up. But if not, don't beat yourself up, just level up. Preaching is pressure, but it's also a great privilege. God has placed you in this space for this moment, for this season. And I want you to take full advantage of it because the gospel really matters. Let's keep growing under that weight. And let's keep doing it together.